Hi guys, Cheshire here. Welcome to this new module. The name of this module is The Problem of Control, and I named it like this because this module is about Active Directory group policies. Once again, it is one of the most important component of Active Directory, and why it is important because this is one of the reason why a lot of organizations implement Active Directory in their environment because they want to use group policies. Okay, so let's get started. The problem of control. Contoso is doing well with their business growth and their new IT setup. There are no more login delays or the glitch in accessing the file servers. The security on the file server is also doing very well. They have created all the relevant groups and set up the right security on folders and shares. However, with so many employees, Sam and Rita are feeling less and less in control, especially with their IT infrastructure. They are facing challenges like employees installing too much non work related stuff on their PCs, or no centralized control on map drives and wallpaper. So basically, employees can do whatever they want to do on their computer, and they are not able to push a centralized control via the Active Directory or via any other solution for that matter on the PCs. They discuss the problem with their IT advisors, the IT company which they have been consulting before, and they explain them that group policy can solve their issues. So now this module is about implementing group policies. So here is what we are going to cover in this module. I'm going to give you an introduction to group policies. I'm going to introduce you to GPMC, which is the Group Policy Management Console. Then we are going to break a group policy object and look into the various subparts of group policies, like what's available in a GPO, what are the various settings which is available in GPO, and how to use that GPO and how to configure it and stuff like that. Then we are going to create our very first GPO and going to apply it on a computer or a user. Then I'm going to talk to you about the group policy inheritance. Then we will talk about blocked policies versus enforced policy, or blocked inheritance versus enforced policies. So this is a very good interview question, uh, which is asked when people discuss about group policies. Then I'm going to show you password policy. Uh, in our Active Directory domain, we can implement some kind of a password policy so that when users are setting up their password, we can force them to follow a certain pattern for setting up their password. By doing so, we make sure that our passwords remain secured. You have fallen victim of password policy a lot of times in different situations when you are trying to create your user account with various banks or maybe other things where you set up a user account for yourself and they don't let you put in any password you like, and they push you to decide on a password. I'm also going to show you a password setting object. This is an alternative to a password policy which has come since Windows 2008 R2, I believe. And then we are going to talk about troubleshooting a group policy object. Okay, so it's a very exciting module. Probably will be a bit long module as well, but I hope you are going to like it. Thank you. Group policies. Let's begin with the definition. Group policy is a feature of Microsoft Windows NT family. Okay, in a lot of these definitions, there will be a word which is Microsoft Windows NT family. NT stands for new technology, and Windows NT was also the first Windows server which Microsoft launched. Around 1998, I reckon, or 1995. I don't know the exact year, but since then I have seen that everywhere they refer, whenever they are referring Windows Server, they refer it to with the name of Windows NT. So it's okay, as long as you understand Windows NT means Windows Server, or if you don't understand it, whenever you see Windows NT, replace the word Windows NT with Windows Server in your head. So group policy is a feature of Microsoft Windows NT family of operating systems that control the working environment of user accounts and computer accounts. You have created both of them in past. You have created user accounts in Active Directory and you have created computer accounts, so they should not be anything strange to you. Group policy provides centralized management and configuration of operating systems, applications, and user settings in an Active Directory environment. So, once again, it is a centralized control. Centralized management means centralized control and configuration of the operating system settings, the application settings, and the user settings in Active Directory environment. So that's what group policy is. I hope that definition is pretty clear. So we'll just move on to the next section, which is management of group policy objects. So now I told you what is a group policy object, but how do you access the group policy object, or how do you manage a group policy object in Active Directory? Microsoft provides something which is called as Group Policy Management Console, or we usually refer to as GPMC interface, that enables Active Directory administrator to manage group policy object from one console. So this is a photo of a GPMC. I just took a photo from somewhere on Google, and this is probably German or something. So just ignore whatever it is, but this is a basic GPMC console, and these are all the OUs which are available in your Active Directory, and these are the group policy objects. I'm going to show you a live GPMC now, so let's go there on our server and have a look at our GPMC. All right, so here we are in my Azure panel. And what I have done here is that I have started the ADC and the PDC, the two domain controllers. I could have done it from any one of the domain controller as well, but I want to show you the replication of the group policy object and sysvol, etc. in today's training. So I've started both the servers. I would also like to tell you that what I have done is that I have installed Azure app on my phone. So while I was waiting for this portal to load up and does its stuff, I went ahead and I booted up these servers from that Azure app. So that's something which you should install as well. Get familiar with the Azure app on your phone, and that gives you a control over your whole Azure tenant. Whatever you have inside the Azure tenant, you can access it from the app. Not all the features are available in app, of course, because this is a huge control panel, but at least you can do a lot of things which you have to do in a hurry, like turn off a machine or reboot a machine, or maybe you just want to check a status of a machine real quick. So, yep. Having said that, let's go ahead and launch my remote desktop client. And yep, and I'm going to log into the PDC, and I'm going to log into ADC. Also, you should remember, I told you during the earlier module that what I have done in my DNS console now is that I have replaced my IP addresses for these machines with the DNS name of these machines. Look here. And now this way, I don't have to update the IP address in my connection window all the time. The IP address is getting updated in the background, because whenever I allocate my computer or my server, my IP address might be given to anybody else who is using that region, or who needs that IP address. And I am giving an IP address next time which is a brand new IP address. But because I'm using a DNS, I don't have to update the IP address, because DNS automatically updates in Azure, and I can keep using the same name, whereas it keeps referring to a different IP address every time. All right. So having said that, this is one of the domain controller. It is the ADC, and I'm going to open gpmc.msc, Group Policy Management Console. And you can see it is showing you domains. If your forest had multiple domains, all the domains would have been showing up here, as long as you had permissions on other domains. All right. So this is what a group policy management console look like. It is showing the forest on the top. So forest name is rootdomain.com. Then under that, domains, and I'm right now in the root domain, which is named as root domain. So that's the one here. If I had other domains here, there would be other domains which would have come up here, but it's not the case. And if you remember, these are the OUs from my Active Directory users and computers. I will open it for you. And remember, I told you that I'll finish the sentence after this. So, root domain, built-in is not here. Business computers is here, business groups is here, business users is here, business computer, business groups, business users. Computer is not there. Domain controller is there. FSP, foreign security principal, is not there. Managed services is not there. Basically, the domain controller is there. Do you see how only 4 of these are here and these are missing? Like built-in is not there, computer is not there, FSP is not there, MSN is not there, users is not there. There's a reason. All these are containers and these are organizational units. See that small big book icon on the folder? So what is the difference between organizational unit and a container? No group policy can be applied on a container, whereas a group policy can only be applied on a organizational unit. Alright, so that is the reason. This is a group policy management console. It only shows the organizational units. It doesn't show the container of your domain. This is called as the domain level. Group policy either can be applied on the domain level, and this is a group policy object. By default, when you install your Active Directory, 2 group policy objects gets created automatically. One of them is default domain policy, and the other one is default domain controller policy. 2 GPOs gets created by default. It is up to you. You can create 100 more GPOs or whatever number of GPOs you want to create, which are required for your business purposes. You will understand the reason and business purpose a little more when we delve deep into a GPO. But these are the 2 default GPOs which gets created. Okay, and it is an interview question where they ask you what is the GUID of the global unique identifier, GUID, of the default domain policy and the default domain controller policy. And the answer to that is, you don't have to remember the whole number, but for default domain policy we say that it is 31B, and for default domain controller policy it is 6AC. So this is important because there are a lot of places where when you go into deep Active Directory troubleshooting, you will see all your group policy objects together, and it'll be very difficult for you to, and they will not show their common names, they will show their GUIDs. And it will be very difficult for you to identify which one are the default policies, because these default policies have a certain reason and purpose for them to get created, and you always never ever delete the default policies. Although you can replicate these policies and create exactly a like policy, and you can put that policy here and replace this policy, but why do you want to do that? You can go ahead and delete it. It's not something which AD is not going to allow me to do, but this will be stupid to do it. I have seen no domain which go ahead and delete their default policies. They are created for a purpose, leave them there. Okay, so you will see that there will be 100 GPOs if you are going into, like I'll show you somewhere, ADSI edit. You are familiar with this console, right? And if you go to, I think, the configuration partition, so the partitions. No, not here, sorry. If you go to domain partition, yeah, and you go here, then you go to system, then you go to policies, yeah. So these are your group policy objects. Remember, I told you everything which you see in various panels of whether you are looking at dsa.msc or gpmc.msc or dssite.msc or domain.msc, wherever you are looking at an object, ultimately everything is stored in the ntds.dit database. And ntds.dit database consists of these three partitions. And when I connect to ADSI edit and I start looking into this ADSI edit, whatever you see here, I will see that in a very detailed format somewhere in ADSI edit. You just have to know where you have to look, and you know it with the experience. Like I knew group policies were there, but I was looking for it in configuration partition. Then I went into domain partition because I remembered where it is supposed to be. So look here, 6AC 31B. It's not says which one is default domain policy and which one is default domain controller policy. Imagine you have 100 other policy objects here. There will be like all these weird random set of numbers. You can't know the GUID of every object, every group policy object. But you are supposed to remember the GUID of 31B and 6AC because you don't want to accidentally do anything to them, and various for other reasons you have to know these things. How I remembered it, I always remember 31B and 6AC, but I had to make up something in my head to remember which one is default domain and which one is default domain controller. So remember I told you domain controller is the only physical object. You can touch it. And domain is a logical concept. Okay, when you set up a domain controller, you actually get something like a physical server to which you can go and touch. Domain and forest, these are all logical concepts which gets created within your domain controller. So that's why how I remembered it is 6AC. AC stands for air conditioner. So AC is physical and default domain controller is physical. So that's why 6AC is default domain controller policy, and hence 31B is default domain policy. So that's how I remembered it. Now I don't have to bring that analogy to my head all the time, but I just remember it that it is that. Look at this, the display name. Default domain controller policy, 6AC. 31B, default domain policy. Okay, so these are two group policy objects, and these are the GUIDs of these group policy objects which you should remember, and you should always be able to recall these GUIDs, and this is a very good interview question. Now, this container here, it basically shows you all the group policy objects in your Active Directory. These group policy objects can be in use or they may not be used. Like I will go ahead and create a new group policy object here. I will just name it usually, how do you name the group policy object? You name the group policy object based on the work which the group policy object is going to do. Because imagine a situation where there are 100 group policy objects here and different administrators have created it, and you will have no clues which group policy object does what, unless you go into the settings of the group policy object, and even then it is very difficult to find out because there are so many settings in a group policy object. So the easiest way to remember what a group policy object does is name it correctly. Like maybe I want to create a group policy object to hide the run prompt from here. This is one of the control which you put on a lot of machines, or you want to hide the control panel and network connections window or other things from the computer. So what I'll do is I will name this GPO hide run. Okay, now this clearly tells me it's a hide run GPO. I created this GPO. Alright, but I have not applied this GPO anywhere as of now. This GPO is lying idle. How do I apply it? When I link it to a OU. When I connect a GPO object to an OU, that's when the GPO get applied. So when I right click here, I get two options. Either I can create a GPO directly from here and it will get linked here, or I can link an existing GPO. Like I will just create a test GPO here. See, it got created and linked here, and you can also see it here. Alright, if I go ahead and delete it from here, it will get deleted from everywhere. It got deleted. Or what I can do is that if I have an existing GPO, I can just go ahead and link the GPO here. So link an existing GPO, I say okay, and the GPO got linked. Now right now, if I go to settings page, there is literally no settings defined. No settings defined in computer configuration, no settings defined in user configuration. We are going to do dissection of a GPO to understand about the details here, but just see here for now that there are no settings defined. So even if I apply the GPO on this OU and whatever user or computer reside inside this OU, they'll not get anything because you haven't defined anything, all right? Above here, general, these are just the details of the GPO, like look at the unique ID of this GPU. This is not 31B or 6AC, and nobody is ever going to ask you to remember these things because this will change every now and then. But 31B and 6AC are the default GPUs, and in every domain you go, their grid will start with 31B and 6AC. Okay? So these are general information about the GPU, that who is the owner, I created it, when what was created, when it was modified, where it is connected. So it is connected to the sales OU. I will talk about security filtering later maybe, and the delegation later maybe. But these are just security settings. Remember, we set security settings on all the folders to allow some people or don't allow some people. So similarly, you can set the GPO settings so that you can kind of restrict people from accessing this GPO, and accessing in two ways. Either people will not be able to come in here and edit the settings of this GPO, or accessing it in the ways of that the GPO, despite of all other conditions to be true, will not get applied on them. What are those conditions? We will talk about them later. But then this is what applying a GPO or delegation and security filtering means. Okay. So this is what GPMC is, and this is a very good panel. There are two more things which I want to tell you about the group policy management console, and that is group policy modeling and group policy result. So far, we haven't discussed much in detail about how the group policy get applied, so the results and modeling may not make sense to you. But just to tell you briefly, these two snap-ins will help you create a resultant kind of a wizard. So if you create this group policy and you put certain settings into it, and you want to find out that if it will get applied on a certain user named Sam, then what will he see? Or what settings will get actually applied on him. So you can look at a modeling wizard. So this is before it gets applied to him. The second one is the group policy resultant wizard. This wizard you can run if the policy has already been applied on a user. And what happen in a corporate environment is that there are thousands of users, so it is always not possible for you to go and talk to the user and look at the user and see what policies are getting applied on his computer. So remotely from your server you can run this resultant set of policies, and it will give you XML page or a HTML page where you can go in and look at what all settings got applied as a result of multiple GPUs which applied on a user, what all settings got applied on him. So this is a very good troubleshooting tool, group policy resultant and group policy modeling. We will do them a bit more when we actually deep dive into group policies. So this was the introduction of the group policy management console. Let's go ahead and have a look what's next in the training. So we looked at GPMC. Now let's go to the next topic, which is dissection of the group policy object. In this section, we are going to look inside a group policy object to see what all is there and how we can configure it to the requirement. The group policy object is typically made up of a computer policy or computer settings, user settings. Then there are certain sections which are called as user right assignment, administrative templates, group policy preferences, scripts, etc. So let's just have a look at a policy, and that will give us a better understanding. So let's say we created this GPU. Okay, this was the GPU we just now created. Look at the settings, they are all empty right now. So you decide to edit this GPU. That means you want to put the settings. So this is the group policy editing window. And now this has opened a particular policy for you. So what's there in this policy? First of all, you need to see that policy is divided between computer configuration and user configuration. That is because when you create a group policy, either it can get applied on a computer. So if the policy is applied on a computer, then whatever settings you apply on that computer, no matter what user log into that PC, those settings will remain applicable. So if you have set up some kind of a wallpaper, or if you have done hide, run, auto at a computer level, then no matter which user log into that computer, these settings are going to remain applicable. Once again, the example which I give you, like hide, run, or wallpaper, these are actually user configurations, can only be probably applied from user policies. There are so many settings in group policies that it is not possible for anybody to remember all those settings. And when you are trying to put a new level of a control, you usually go to Google and try to look into the settings and try to figure out how you are going to implement it. But I'm just telling you that there are certain settings which are applied to a computer level, and those are called as computer settings. And there are certain policies which are applied at a user level, and they are called as user configurations. And if you apply it on a computer, then whatever user is going to log into the computer, this policy is going to remain applicable on him, because the policies are already applied on the computer. Whereas if you apply a policy on a computer, whereas if you apply a policy on a user, then the policies are going to roam with the user. If the user logs on to computer 1, then the policies will get applied on that. If the user logs on to the user 2, then the policies will come along with him, because the policies are attached to the user. And I'll show you how they get attached. One more thing which I want to explain is that if you install or set up a GPO with computer configuration and you don't put any user configurations in it, and then if you go ahead and apply this GPU on a user, so you defined all the computer settings, but then you assigned this GPU to a user, then this user is not going to feel anything, because whatever you have configured in the GPU, that is for computer, and that user is not a computer. So for him, he's only going to look at this section, and this section is going to be empty. That means nothing applies to him. So it's of no use. So if you apply computer configuration, make sure you apply the GPU to computer, and if you apply user configurations, then make sure you apply the GPU to the users. Okay. Now let's quickly look at how the GPUs get applied. So Active Directory users and computers. Okay. If there is a computer here, you want to apply a GPU to it, then go ahead and link the GPU to the sales OU here. And how do you do that? You go to your favorite GPMC console and you link a GPU here. So you apply certain settings in the GPU, and then you link it to this OU, and then inside that OU you put a computer, and all the settings will get installed or applied on this computer. If you put 10 more computers in this OU, then all those 10 computers will get the same settings. Whereas if you want to create a user group policy, then you go ahead and apply it to business users or here. And if you apply it here, then that group policy will get applied to all the users which are underneath it, which are inside the account OU, which are inside the owner OU, or which are inside the sales OU. And if you apply a group policy object directly on accounts OU, then it will not get applied on owners OU or sales OU, because they are not under it. They are equal to it. So this is like a folder. So this is also something which is called as group policy inheritance. We are going to discuss that more in detail next. But as of now, just understand that when you apply a group policy object and an OU, then whatever user and computer are inside that OU, the group policy object gets applied on them. And you have to make sure that if you have configured computer settings, then inside that OU there should be computers. But if you go ahead and configure computer settings in this OU, in this group policy object, and then all you put inside this OU is all the users, then this group policy object will not be able to do anything, because these are all computer configurations. Alright, so that's how you apply a GPU. Now going back to the editor. So these are computer configurations and these are user configurations. Now under both of them, there are policies and preferences. Policies are the default policies which have been coming in since Windows Server 2000. And preferences are some latest policies which has come up in the version of Windows after Windows 7 client and Windows 2008 R2. Before that, there used to be only policies. Even now, preferences are used to a limited extent, and policies are what is used mostly. But of course, preferences make certain things easier to do, uh, like creating a map drive, which were not possible in policies before. Okay, let's just have a look quickly. Under policies, you have got software settings. So if you want to install certain softwares on your computer, like you have an OU, and in that OU there are like 200 computers, and you want to install Office on all those computers, you can configure software installation policy. And I'll not go into the detail of this policy because I'm just giving you an overview. You can configure the software installation policy and you can apply it on the all the computers, and that software will get installed. Again, when you configure this policy, you will have to provide the path of the package, where is the package available, there is the installer package for the software, and all those things you'll have to provide. And then you will, once you have configured all that, then you will go ahead and put it on an OU. You will link it to a OU, and whatever computers are inside that OU, they will have get this software installed. So these are software settings. Then there are Windows settings. This is the area which most of the people use maximum time. Under this, scripts. So what you can do is that you can write some script, and you can implement scripts. Can be like to create a map drive or to do any job. A script is like a small program which you write in VB script or batch file. Batch file is a string of commands from command prompt. So you basically write some small program, and then you want that program to get applied to all the computers. So you can put that program here, and you can basically you can go to startup and you can provide the script here, the VB script or PowerShell script or batch file, whatever you want to provide, you can put it here. And what's going to happen that when the computer boot up, if you put it on boot up, then when the computer starts for the first time, or rather every time when the computer start up after coming into this group policy, that script will get applied on it. Or if you put it on shutdown, then whenever the computer shuts down, the script will get applied on it. You can do some printer deployment from it. Security settings is one of the most important place. Now you can put account policies, which is more about password policy. We are going to look into it again later. The password policy, account lockout policy, coveralls policy, you can define these things. Local policies is something, and especially user right assignment, which is used a lot. So you can give users rights like allow log on through remote desktop services. Remember, whenever I was trying to log into a client machine, initially when I created the client machine and I tried to log in with a local user, it didn't let me log in unless I went into the computer and I added the user to the remote desktop users group. Instead of that, what I could have done was that I could have applied this group policy and I could have added a user or a group from here, so to that computer, and then it would have allowed me to log in. So as you can see, it makes your job very easy. Instead of going to 100 computers and adding a user to the remote desktop user group, if you want a certain user or a group to be able to log in to all the PCs remotely, then you can create a group policy object to allow log on through remote desktop services, add that group here, and then that's it. Anybody who is a member of that group will be able to log into all the PCs without any problem. So this is what is the user right assignment. There are a lot of user right assignments, and there are so many settings in here. Again, not something which you can remember on the go. Every time when you have to apply a group policy, you actually have to Google these things. You won't even know the meaning of all these things. With time, you understand a lot of things because you get experience on those things. A lot of them are self-explanatory. If you double click on it and you go to explain, this will also give you some kind of an explanation about it, what this user right assignment does, or in fact whatever options are available, it will give you an explanation on that. So it is very difficult to remember all these things, but what you need to know is that this is a group policy object and this is what all you can do from it. And then there are so many group policy settings which are here. But what you need to remember is that in most of the cases, when we create a group policy object, we do it for a specific purpose. So in every GPO, 99.9% settings, uh, like this is a good place to show you. In every GPO, 99.9% settings will remain at not defined. It will be just one setting or two settings related to the same purpose which you will be assigning or implementing in that GPO, and those settings will be very close to the name of the GPO. Every GPO which you are going to open looks like this because this is the default template of a GPO. But you will be defining very specific settings to achieve a very specific thing. Like if this GPO is for hide run, I will show you where you can define the hide run thing. That will be in the user policy. So I'll show that to you. But this is what is a group policy object, and these are the Windows settings. The last one is administrative templates. Now administrative templates is something which you really use to do stuff uh, to the things which you are looking in your computer, like control panel. There are settings for control panel. So you can say force a specific default lock screen and log on image. Do not display a lock screen. You may want to enable it. Yes, enable. Do not display the lock screen. So when this get applied on a computer, this will not that computer will not display the lock screen, whatever that means. And you will name the GPO appropriately, so that if you have 1,000 GPO, you can figure out what GPO does what by looking at its name. Okay, and user accounts, what you want to do, apply a default account picture to all the users. So these are some settings which organizations wants to do, and based on what your organization wants to do and plan to do, you actually come up with these settings what you are going to apply on a GPO. So system menu and taskbar system. Again, there are thousands of settings and it is way too difficult to know what is there in that setting. In fact, nobody knows it. When you have to do something, a specific task, you come up here and you figure out which settings you can use, or you can Google and try to find out what is available on Google. And look here, there are settings for OneDrive, there are settings for File Explorer. So whatever settings are usually available on a PC to do, like I'll show you if OneDrive client is here on this PC one. Yeah, there's no OneDrive client. But if I go here on my computer, there is, this is my OneDrive client. Remember, this is a Mac, but there are so many settings. Open at login, hide dock icon, warn me before, network, limit of the speed, and all these things. So just imagine if you have to implement the settings on 1,000 computers. You can't manually go on every computer and set these settings. And later, the biggest problem is the user will go ahead and change those settings as he wants to. That is the problem of control, that you can go ahead and implement a setting. Let's say that you wanted to do it manually, you went to 100 computers and you set it to don't limit and don't limit, and as soon as you went away from there, the users went here and set it to 125 KB. What would you do? You have no control. So that's why there are group policies. You can go to a specific group policy setting like OneDrive, and you can go ahead and configure the settings which are available. And once again, it's not that whatever you want to do, there will be a group policy setting for that. That's what you need to Google if a group policy setting is available or not available. So these are administrative templates which are there. Then preferences. Preferences, again, is kind of administrative template. It gives you access to a lot of shares, a lot of settings which you want to create. So you can set up shares from here directly. You can make changes to the registry. You can do control panel settings. Power options you can edit from here, network options. This has become a bit more friendly. But this is only Windows 7 onwards. Anything below Windows 7, the client will not get Windows preferences installed. Okay, so this was the computer settings. Looking at the user settings, once again it is policies and preferences. Under policies, once again it is software settings. So if you want to install a software, when a user log into any PC, a software should get installed. Let's say there is a user who use Acrobat DC, and you want that whatever computer he logs into, he should get access to Acrobat DC. So one very wrong way of doing this thing, and when I say wrong way is that because if this user is going to all different PCs, you will end up installing Acrobat on all that computer. But I'm just giving this as an example. So you may want to go ahead and configure the Adobe Acrobat installation and assign it to this user. By assigning it, I mean you put this user in an OU and set up this group policy and link it to that OU. Now this user, wherever he goes and whatever computer he logs into, the software will get installed on that computer and he can access it. Again, there are Windows settings, scripts, log on and log off. So if you want to implement a script on a user when he logs in, so whenever he log into a PC, you want to give him a pop-up good morning with his first name, so you can set up a script. If you want to set up a log off message or a script which should get executed and log off, you can create a script and put it on a log off event. Security settings, again some settings which are available for you. Folder redirection, if you want to redirect these folders to a network location. Administrative templates, once again, this is where the settings like hide notification area, remove folders links from start menu. And I'm looking for the run, show run as different user, remove log off from start menu. So there is an option to sign out. So the sign out log off option may get removed. Remove network icon, remove battery meter. So all these are like, there are thousands of settings, and prevent the user from resizing the taskbar. So what users do is that they go to the taskbar and they put it vertically here and they move the location of the taskbar. If you want to this locked, people go ahead and make the taskbar like this. You don't want them to be able to do that. So what you can do, you can prevent user from resizing the taskbar. Then I will not be able to resize the taskbar. Lock all taskbar settings. Then user will not be able to change the taskbar settings. You want to do it on 1,000 computers because user every day go ahead and change the things and then make your life difficult. So you can go ahead and put this group policy object on all the client computers. And how do you put it? You put all the client computers in one OU like sales computers, and then you create a GPO and you link it here. And always remember, name the GPO close to the settings which you are going to implement, because in a GPO it looks so complicated, but 99.9% is useless for us. Only the settings which are configured inside a GPO are of use to us. And to look at the settings which are configured inside the GPO, this is not the right way to go into every folder and look at it. The right way to look at it is via here. If you go to settings, no settings configured. As soon as we will configure a setting, only that setting will show up here. So I'm just looking for the hide run. Okay, so I finally found it. Remove run from the start menu. Applies to pretty much all the computers in the world, starting from Windows XP. Okay, and whatever is an administrative template will most likely get applied to all the computers. It's only the things which are inside preferences that will get applied to computer Windows 7 onwards. Is it enabled? Said remove run from the start menu. Enabled. Alright. That's it. That's the name of the GPU. That's the only setting which I'm going to do here. Nothing else. Or maybe if you are trying to do some other job, like maybe I want to name this GPU control panel icons, and then I can go ahead and go to control panel and I can go into different sections and disable a lot of things. But then the name should say that it is about the whole control panel. Then I will do 20 different settings in it. But then also the settings will be remitted to a specific area. If you just create one GPU and you do all the settings in the world into that GPU, it will become very difficult. for you to manage that GPU. So I have made the change. I'll just refresh. See, it doesn't say under user configuration, no settings defined. Start menu and test bar, remove run from the menu. Only one setting is defined and only one setting is visible here. All right. So that's what a group policy object is, and that's how you go ahead and edit a group policy object. Let's go back to training and look at what we need to do. So I showed you logon scripts, I showed you administrative templates, I showed you group policy preferences, user policy, computer policy, user right assignments. Once again, guys, don't get overwhelmed with this. You have to learn it with time. Just start looking into various settings which are available. Get into the proficiency of applying the group policy object, making one setting, applying it on a computer, see that the setting get applied on a computer. Do stuff like that, okay? Whenever you have to apply a very serious group policy object or a big group policy object which does a lot of things, you will be doing a lot of research. The requirement here is to understand how it works. You can't get proficient on each and every setting which is applied in a group policy object, because these settings keeps getting increasing in the number with the new version of operating system. Microsoft start pushing new things all the time, and you can't be keeping pace with all the settings. In fact, it's not required. What all you are going to remember, what you need to understand it, how it works, and use it when you need it. So creation of the first GPU, we already created a first GPU for Hydron and we configured the setting. And what we have done is, let's say that we want, let's have a look here. So it's a user GPU which we have created. We have got Ravi and we have got Sam in these OUs. And what we want is that when they log into a computer, the run menu should be hidden. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to boot up our client PC, okay? And to do that, we will go to our Azure and we are going to start the temp Windows 10. Today I'm also going to configure the DNS name for here. Okay, got client. I'm going to configure it here, my Winter client, so that I don't have to update the IP address every time. All right. So Winton client, hopefully it's up now. All right, so the machine seems to be up now. We are logged in with the user Sam on this machine. Alright, we logged in. Now if we click on the start menu here, by default we don't see a run thing here anymore, and for that we have to do a right click and then we see the option run. Okay, so now what we are going to do, we have already created the GPO to do hide run, and where it is applied on a computer OU, whereas it's a user configuration. So that's entirely wrong. What we are going to do is we are going to unlink it from here. In fact, let me show you this. I can actually link a GPU at two places together because GPU is an object. You can connect it at as many places as possible. So I also linked it here. Although it is useless here, so I'm going to remove it from here. The way to remove it is that you say basically delete, and this goes away from here, but it didn't delete the GPU. The GPU is still here. It basically just remove it from here. So I did hide run here. Now what's going to happen is that I have applied it on business users. And who is inside business users? Let's look here. Inside business user, there are 3 more OUs. So when I'm linking a group policy object, it will get applied to all 3 users here, right? So the group policy object has been linked to Hydra. Let's see what happens now. So it is applied on the user Sam. Whatever, and where is Sam? Sam is here. And where is the group policy object? It's at business users level. Whatever computer Sam logs in on will and should hide run. If you have noticed one thing, Sam logged into this computer before and we applied the group policies after that. So the group policies will not get applied automatically. So the run is still visible. In fact, I'm going to use this run and I will open the window command prompt. And I will run my favorite command, which is called as gp update /force, which is group policy update /force. I'm asking this computer to do a group policy update right now. Before I do that, let me tell you that group policy is a pull process. When I say pull process, whenever a GPO gets created, like a GPO we created here, hide run, what happened is that this got created in Active Directory. In Active Directory, this got created in 2 places. One, the settings which you have created, they got created in the sysvol folder, and the configuration, the blueprint of the GPO, it got created in the ntds.dit or the domain partition. I showed it to you earlier. If you go to details, okay, it doesn't show the path of the GPU here. So it basically got created at 2 places. Under the default naming context, under system, under policies, this is the ntds.dit path. Should show up here. It's not showing an ADC. Let me see why. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to connect to the other domain controller. Okay. Now I have opened the same thing. This is the ntds.dit file of the ADC server and this is the ntds.dit file of the PDC server. They should be replicating and syncing, but remember they are in different sites. There could be a delay. And primary domain controller is the authoritative group policy manager. See, there is the third GUID which got created here. So this is the blueprint and this is still not showing up in the ntds.dit file of ADC. That's very bad. What we can do, we will go ahead and push a replication, rep admin /sync all /eap. We kind of pushed replication. It doesn't mean that it will come here immediately, but we can hope so. This is a technical issue which I'm showing you. The group policy object should come up here, because if it doesn't come up here, then the clients which will get group policy object from this ADC may not get all the settings. So what I'm going to do is I will dissect.msc, and I will also go ahead and do replicate now from here. Finally. So this group policy object, it came here. There is a delay in the replication because these are in, at least we have told Active Directory that one of the domain controllers is in Manila and the other one is in LA. And the site link which we created, LA Manila, what does it set the replication interval to? 180 minutes, that is 3 hours. So they are supposed to replicate once every 3 hours. But what I did, I went ahead and pushed the replication by doing replicate now. That's why the ntds.det got synced. So half of the GPU is stored here. Again, it's the machine settings and user settings inside GPU. Everything that you see in any snap-in is available here. As long as you have the caliber to go into the properties and go into all these settings, you can do whatever you want from here. This is the technical side of things. The half of the GPU is here and the rest half is in, the rest half of this GPU is in the sysvol folder. If you go into policies, once again, this has yet not replicated. If I will go to PDC, and I'm accessing it over the network, and I go here, policies, look, there's the GPU. So the rest half of the GPU is here. So now what happens is that when a client actually applies a GPU, what it does is that when it is booting up or when the user is logging in, booting up for computer policy and user logging in for user settings, it goes to the nearest domain controller and asks it, what all group policy objects do I have to apply on me? The domain controller tell it that you are in this OU, you need to apply these group policy objects. Then it goes to the sysvol folder and it gets all the settings from, it basically pulls all these settings from the server. It's a pull operation. It's not the domain controller which once configured all the settings will go back to every client and tell them that, you know, these are the group policy objects which you want to apply on yourself. This is not a push operation. If the domain controller would have done it, this would have been a push operation. But whereas this is a pull operation. So what's happening? All the client machines, they go ahead to the domain controller and pulls all the settings from there to get applied on them. So now what I have done is I have just created the Hydron GPU. I have not so far applied the GPU on it because the GPU got created after the SAM logged in. So what I'm doing now is I'm doing a GP update force on the client and it is doing updating policy. So it is going to the nearest domain controller and it is going to download and apply the settings on itself. Okay, now let's see. Run is still there. So it's always not possible that a GP update force will apply the policy for you. So the next logical thing which you can do is you can log off from here and then you log back in, because there are a lot of settings which cannot get applied once the user has already logged in or once the computer has already booted up. So if those settings are user settings, then you need to log off from the user and log back in. And if those settings are computer policies, then you need to restart the computer, because there are certain settings which only can be applied upon a restart. There are certain settings which can only be applied upon a login. So a GP update force is not something which I really ever liked a lot. It's just a quick shortcut. But in most cases, if you're facing a group policy issue, I'll just ask you go ahead and reboot the client first. That should be the first step. Reboot the client and make sure that the issue persists after that. And we also have another issue here that the sysvol has not replicated between these two domain controllers. So we have to make sure that both the sysvols should have the GPO. Otherwise, if my computer comes to this ADC for getting the group policy, then it could become a problem of a sort. I'm going to event viewer to look for the events regarding file replication to see if there is any error event there. That's how you troubleshoot. Yeah, so this warning message. Now, the next thing which you can do is you can actually look at this message and then Google and try to figure out what are your next steps. But there seems to be some issue which is happening in file replication. I'm going to restart DFS because we are using DFS replication. Anyways, this is an issue and this should be resolved. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to just copy and paste this GPU here for the sake of troubleshooting, but this is not the right way. This might create a conflict. So that's not the correct way. You should never do that actually. So I'm going to log back in. Alright, so we are logged in to this computer and now let's look at this. So the run menu is still there. Let's go ahead and click on it. But here's what has happened. The operation has been cancelled due to restriction in effect on this computer. Please contact your system administrator. So he cannot open run. Now let's see if I can open command prompt. I can open a command prompt window and let's do a RSOP. RSOP is result instead of group policy. Okay, so it is doing it for admin 007 user on temp Windows 10 PC, which is not correct. I want to do it for SAM. What we are doing here is that we are taking a resultant set of policies to find out what all group policies got applied on me. But this is a wrong result because I tried to open it with run as admin and I put the domain admin credentials here. So it is trying to imitate domain admin logged into this computer, which is not correct. I want to see a resultant set of policy for SAM logged into this computer. So what I'll do is I'll open CMD as SAM. So I don't have permissions to generate the computer result of group policy, but I do have the result for the user. Because user is just a regular user, so he would not have permission to get the computer policy result. Let's look at what happened here. We can go to the properties here and we can see which policy got applied on us, hide run. And what is the resultant of that policy? We got this setting applied. Hydran. Okay, so RSOP is like an amazing troubleshooting tool. You can go ahead and apply group policies like this, and you can create a group policy like this, and you can implement the settings. So let's go back to the training now. So we created a GPO for hide run. We also want to create another GPO to show run and override this setting. But I want to do that after I explain group policy inheritance to you, which is the next topic. Group policy inheritance. What is it? Inheritance is like anything which you get from your parents or the people above you. All right. So group policy inheritance is the same thing. GPO inheritance lets administrator to set common set of policies to a domain level or site level and configure more policies at the OU level. GPO inherited from the parents are processed before the GPOs linked to the object itself. Order of the group policy inheritance, LSTOU. Okay, very complicated. So basically what it is trying to say is, I will go to my GPMC console. I'll close this. Okay, so this is GPMC. What it is saying is that group policies from the parents, the settings which are defined in the group policy from the parent, do get applied to clients or to the OUs underneath it. So this default domain policy will get applied to everybody here. This default domain policy will get applied to basically everything which is inside the domain because the group policy is linked at this level. The next thing is that if I implemented this group policy here, this will also get implemented to the users inside this, to users inside it. Basically, anything which is coming from above gets implemented to everybody. Then, if there is a setting which is conflicting between this group policy and a group policy which is linked at this level, so under accounts, this is more close to the user, whereas business users is more of a generic term, like all the business users. So maybe you did hide run here and it implemented on everybody, for sales guys as well, for owners as well, for everybody. Well, owner says, dude, don't do hide run for me. Let me use run. I don't want you to hide it. So what you can go ahead and do is you can create a GPU at this level, which can say show run. Again, I'm just showing you the things for the sake of explaining them to you. You don't create these kind of conflicting GPOs in all the cases, but sometimes you need to do them for specific business purposes. So what you go ahead and do is that you go ahead and set up a setting to show run. And how do we do that? So the setting was remove run. Remove run menu from start menu. What I did in earlier policy, I enabled it. Here I will go ahead and disable it. Let's have a look at the setting. Show run. So basically show run is remove run disabled. So what's going to happen, that default domain policy is going to say nothing about run. Business users will say hide run, and the ultimate owners group policy will say show run. So the policy at this level will take the precedence, because what's going to happen to run? With this policy, when it gets applied, nothing is going to happen to it. When this policy gets applied, it will get hidden. But when this policy get applied, it will get shown. So that's what is group policy inheritance. Let's go back to this. So group policy inheritance lets administrator to set a common set of policies to domain level. So what do? You go ahead and set the most common policies, whatever you need to. And that's why default domain policy, it has lot of settings, lot of stuff in it. already. So common settings are already applied at this level. And then specific settings at OU level. So what did you do? You applied a specific setting to hide run at this level. But you wanted to apply a more specific setting at OU level, so you went to a OU underneath and then you applied it. Okay, so that's what group policy inheritance is. I'm going to show you the output of that show run as well. Let me just give it a while. I will push the replication in the meanwhile because we have these domain controllers in different sites. And okay, so what is the order of group policy inheritance? The group policies can get applied at the local level. That is the local group policy. So that's funny, yeah. So the first thing which you do is you can apply a group policy on, okay, I'm not an administrator on this computer, so I don't get access to apply group policies on it. But if I log in with an admin account on this computer, you will see that I have the local group policy editor here. And this local group policy editor looks exactly like the domain group policy editor. Alright, so you can apply group policy settings from here as well. You can do hide run, show run, all those settings are available here. You can do it from here as well. So first of all, the local policy will get applied. Then a site level policy will get applied. What is a site level? That is Active Directory site. In our GPMC, if I go here, I also have sites. So you can go ahead and look at the sites here. And if you want to apply a GPO to Manila site users only, you can say, if you only want to hide run for Manila users, you can go ahead and do that. Then you can apply a site level policy. This is what is a site level policy. Then what is the third one? Is domain level policy. So whatever settings comes here will win after that, domain level. And the last one is OU level, which is this level, which is the closest to the user. Simple. So if you, what you are going to do, if you go ahead and set hide run in the local policy, which is here, then you do a show run here at the site level, then site level will win. If you go ahead and do hide run again at the domain level, then hide run will win. But if you do a show run here, then show run will win. And if you do hide run here again, then hide run will win. Basically, that is the way in which get applied. And why it is happening, let me simplify it for you. Because when the computer boots up, first of all, the local policy get applied on it. Okay? So local guy told it something, hide run. Then the site level policy will get applied and the site level will say show run. Then the domain policy will get applied and it will again say hide run. Then the OU policy will get applied, it will get show run. And then there could be a sub OU as well. So we have not divided OU, sub OU and sub OU, but OU basically means any OU. The OU which is closest to the user. Then that policy will get applied. Okay, let me go ahead and do a GP update force. Let's see what happened to the run. See, run has started to work. Why this happened? Because at owner's level, I have applied a policy called as show run. What will happen if we log in with Ravi? Let's go ahead and do that. So let's log off. And edit it here. See if we have a user for Ravi. Yeah, we do. So we save that and we log in. This is the same computer on which Sam was able to show run. Now, once again in AD, while it is logging in, what's happening? We have a hide run policy at business users at this level. And where is Ravi? Ravi is in sales. At sales level, do we have any other policy? No, we don't. So the business user policy will take effect on Ravi. cancel. We can't start run. So this is what is group policy inheritance. All right. Let's go back to the training. So this is what is group policy inheritance. Local, site, domain, and OU. This is a interview question once again, that what is the level of inheritance, or what is the hierarchy of group policy inheritance, and the answer to that is LSTOU. And LSTOU stands for local, site, domain, OU. Block policy or block inheritance versus enforce. This is once again a topic or a question for interview. If the block inheritance setting is enabled, the inheritance of group policy settings is blocked. This setting is mostly used when the OU contains users' computers that require different settings than what applied at the levels above them. So what you can do is block inheritance. I'll show you this thing again to you. So what happens? Instead of, what we did here was that there was a policy which was doing hide run, and to overcome this policy and show you the inheritance power, I created a policy show run. I'll just go ahead and delete it. And I will also delete the GPO from here. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to delete it for now. Let's leave it here. Okay. But now Sam is complaining. Sam is here that I'm the owner. I want to show run. So another thing which you could have done was that you could have gone to owner's OU and you could have said block inheritance. That means this OU will not inherit any group policies anymore. Let me do this. Let me unblock the inheritance first. Let me go back to the client. And let me log off. And we will sign back in as Sam. So what has happened is that I have the hide run policy back in, and from owners I remove show run. Now technically what's going to happen is that Sam should not be able to see or use run anymore. Right, so alright, so we are logged in. Alright, so we are logged in. Let's go ahead and have a look at run. Okay, the operation has been cancelled. So Sam is not able to do it. Sam says, you know what, don't block it for me. So the easiest thing which you could have done was block inheritance. So then this policy stops getting applied on it. However, this way, all the policies have stopped getting applied on him. But basically, no policy is getting applied on him. All right. So you go ahead and do run again, and it's not working. We need to open command prompt, and we do gp update force. Let's try the run again. Run window started to work. How did it start to work? Because we put a block policy inheritance or block inheritance at this level. All right. And now the problem is solved. The user is not getting the policy anymore. So this is what is called as block inheritance. When you put a block inheritance on an OU, all the policies above it, whatever or wherever they were coming from, the domain, the site level and the OU levels above it will not get applied on this OU because it has blocked the inheritance. Again, all these concepts are as simple as what happened in real human situations. So you blocked the inheritance. You stopped listening to your parents. You're not going to listen to them anymore. Okay? So That's what is block inheritance. Now, let's go back to training. Look, simple checkbox. Enforced is the other setting, enforced policy. Enforced or no override is a setting that is imposed on a GPO along with all the settings in the GPO so that any GPO with higher precedence does not win, or if there's a conflicting setting, then will be overridden by the other GPO. So enforcement is a setting where you don't want it to overrun the setting by another GPO. So maybe there are certain settings at default domain level and you want to make sure that those settings, no matter what are the settings or the GPOs at the local level, the settings at the default domain level should get applied. So you say enforce. We enforced it. That, whatever settings I have put in, they should get applied. I don't care if there is any other conflicting settings. So this is enforced. So I'm also going to enforce hide run. Okay. Once again, we have a block inheritance here, but we enforced a policy. Let's see what happens. We go to the client PC. And as of now, run is allowed. Now what we have done, hide run is being enforced. GP update / force. Once again, the policy took effect. What happened here? You enforce the policy, and basically enforce says, I don't care if there is a restriction applied. I want this to be forced. So an enforced policy won over block inheritance. Now, why do you in real life situation do these things? Well, when the Active Directory gets really old, there are so many OUs, there are so many containers, there's like complicated Active Directory structures. At certain level, at some level, people have put in block inheritance to achieve some short-term goals. These are not some very good practices. Block policy, inheritance or enforce. I would not like to do them in an Active Directory which I am managing. These are some shortcut ways of pushing along the settings which otherwise could have been blocked. Let's say there is an emergency setting that you have to hide run from all the computers in your organization. So you went ahead and configured the policy at the default domain level. But what happened? There are 20 OUs in your organization which are on block inheritance, and there is like sub OU, sub OU, sub OU, like a folder and a folder and a folder level kind of a structure which is available. And it is way too difficult for you to figure out what you can unblock, and maybe those blocks are for certain settings which are coming from an OU above level, and you can't go ahead and remove the block inheritance option here, because then not only this policy will get applied, but this policy will also get applied, and you don't want that to happen. So in that case, what you can do is you can do a enforce of a policy, and when you enforce a policy, it breaches through the block inheritance. So this is what block inheritance and enforcement means. Once again, this is an interview question, that what is a block inheritance and what is an enforcement of a policy, and who will win between enforcement and block inheritance. So this is something which you should know of. Password policy. Password policy is defined at default domain level. There is only one GPO which you use in the domain to define the password policy. Although you can create a brand new GPO and you can set up password policies in that as well. But even if you do that, let's say that you went ahead and you created a brand new GPO at here, and you said that it is going to be my password policy, which is fine. You can do that. In fact, it's good enough, you can do that. But the point is that this GPO should be applied at the default domain level and not at OU levels. You cannot define a password policy on an individual. So you say that this password policy is for the computers which are inside this OU. No. There can be only one password policy in a domain because these users are not created on your local computers anymore. So if you put a password policy on your local computer, it doesn't matter because the users are present in domain controller OU. And these domain controller OU users are getting logged into computers which are not in this OU. They are in a different OU. So hence you should also not put the password policy here. The right place to put password policy is at domain level, root domain level. So we'll say link an existing policy, password policy. In most of the cases, people would go ahead and configure password policy in the default domain policy and not create a separate password policy. Let me show you what is a password policy. So this is the standard structure of a GPO. You go here, Windows settings, security settings, account policies, password policy. This is what the password policy is. Enforce password history. So this means explanation. You can read the explanations, all of it. Basically, this means that when the user is resetting their password, they cannot use a password which was past 24 passwords. So they have to come up with the password. Like at a lot of places, what I do is that I alternate between a password. I put one password, next time I put another password, then the next time I will put password number 1 again. Because I'm alternating between password. You don't want to remember a lot of passwords. What's happening in that case is that you're weakening your security. So you can say that 24 password remember. That means people cannot use their past 24 passwords once again. They have to come up with a new password. Maximum password age. So this is the time after which the password will get expired and user will have to change it. So maximum they can keep the password for 42 days. Minimum password age, that is 1 day. That is if the user has reset the password today, he cannot reset it until tomorrow. He has to wait minimum 1 day. You can set it to 0 days, which means the user can reset the password 20,000 times in a single day. But this can increase the work on your domain controller, so you don't want to do that. Maximum password, minimum password length. So what is the length of the password? It should be 7 characters. It should be 8 characters. You may want to make it a 20 character password. If you do that, then people cannot have a password below 20 characters in your organization. Password complexity. So this basically means that they need to have a capital letter, small letter, characters. So these are the rules. English uppercase, lowercase, digits. So you can say enable password complexity. And store password and reversible encryption. This is how it is going to store the password. This has nothing to do with the users. So that's what is the password policy. Account lockout policy. So once you have created the password policy, what is the action? The action is after how many attempts are you going to lock out the account? You can say after 3 accounts. After 3 attempts, the password will get locked out. And what is will be the lockout duration? For how long the account will get locked out? For 30 minutes or for 3000 minutes, whatever you want it to be. And reset account lockout threshold counter. So basically, you said that after 3 invalid attempts, he's going to lock out. So what you are going to say that 3 invalid attempts in 30 minutes. What if he do 1 attempt today and 2 attempt tomorrow and 3rd attempt the 3rd day? Well, that is what the threshold is. So after every 30 minutes, this number of invalid attempt will become 0. So if he tries 2 password every 30 minutes, then his account will never get locked out. But as soon as he tries 3 or 4 passwords within a 30 minutes window, his account will get locked out. So again, it's a security setting. Maybe you want to make it 300 minutes or maybe you want to make it more, whatever you want to. So, and once again, whatever you want to understand, just read the explanation. It will give you good details. These are Kerberos policies. So when a user logs into a computer, he gets a Kerberos ticket, which contains the privileges which he have on the via the groups and the permissions. All that is part of his ticket. So you want to define for how long that ticket is going to remain valid. Why is that? Because let's say that you made some user a system administrator or an enterprise admin. He logged into his PC with enterprise admin privileges. Now you removed his privileges, but the Kerberos ticket which he has still have those privileges, and he can present that ticket to everywhere to access anything. Whenever you're accessing a folder, it's if your ticket already has those privileges, then you can just show that ticket. So you have to set up the lifetime of the ticket. You may want to set it to just 3 minutes, or so this means every 3 minutes people will, their ticket will get expired, and if they have to access something new, they will have to come to domain controller and get a new ticket. This will be an increase of a work for domain controllers. You don't want to keep it too low, but you also don't want to keep it too high, because it will become security risk. Again, these are various settings which are there. I told you the time is a very crucial thing. So maximum clock difference is 5 minutes. So if your domain controller is at 2:02 a.m. and if your client machine is at 2:03 a.m., they will still talk. But if your domain controller is at 2:02 a.m. and your client machine is 2:10 a.m., then they will not talk, because the difference is more than 5 minutes. The relationship between the client machine and the domain, the trust between these two will get broken. All right. So yeah, these are the various password settings, etc., which you can apply, and there can be only one password policy in domain. So whatever password policy you are going to apply at the default domain level should be done in default domain policy, but you can create a separate password policy, and then you can, I'm deleting it, I don't want it. And you have to just link it at domain level. So there could be only one password policy. The problem with that is that all the users in your organization, whether they are a basic user or whether they are a super admin user, will have to maintain the same level of password complexity and etc. Whereas it makes sense, a lot of sense, to have a very complicated password for a super admin user, but a basic user may not want to have that very complicated password. It can impact their productivity. Are they coming to office to work or to maintain a complicated password? They may say that please don't expire our password every 42 days. This is too much. What's the solution? Well, until Windows 2008 R2, I believe there was no solution, because you can have only one password policy, and the password policy which you set is going to be used forever. Look at this. The default domain policy defines the password policy by default. Every user in Active Directory and every user located in the local SAM of every server and desktop that joins that Active Directory. There can be only one password policy for the domain users. Okay, this is the password policy which I showed to you. And the problem is that every password policy has to be applied. There has to be only a single policy, and all the users have to follow it. The solution, after Windows 2008, you get something which is called as a password setting object. This is separate from password policy, and this is not a group policy option, but you can use this option to set up a password setting object in your Active Directory, and it has all the same settings: the enforce minimum password length, enforce password history, enforce minimum password age, account lockout policy. You can set up all the policies which were there in a Active Directory setting object, and this setting object can be applied to a user or a group. So what you can do is that you can create a group containing all the basic users of your organization, and you can create a password setting object called as basic password setting object, and you can apply it to the basic group. And then you can create a domain admin or complicated password setting object, and you can apply it to the groups like domain admin, enterprise admin, schema admin, so that anybody who is part of those groups needs to be apply a password complicated object. Okay, so this is what was the solution. So I'll quickly show you how to create a password setting object. And because this is the latest feature, I haven't showed you one console as yet, because I hardly ever use it. It's a new console which has come up recently, which is called as Active Directory Administrative Center. Once again, an extension of Active Directory users and computers, but it's the latest console. You can look into some videos to find out what is the new stuff which is being offered by this console. But once again, the same OU structures, etc. is there. So you go to systems container, here, and then you go to password setting container here, and then you say new password setting object. So you can say it's a simple password setting object. Okay, and you can define all the settings which you want here, and then here you can say to whom it applies to. So you can say it applies to owners. Share is, it's the name of the group, guys. Okay, this is the owners group. I just named it like that. Let me do sales. So it's just the name of the group, don't get confused, okay? So everybody who is inside this group will get this password setting object. So yeah, that's that. Password setting object for sales guys. And you go ahead and say that. So you created a password setting object and you applied it on those users. So it's not a group policy option, it's a different option. And this is the latest option. So by default, you can only have a single group policy, a single password group policy in a domain which is applied at the domain level. However, if you want to have multiple group policies for passwords, or if you want to have multiple settings for different users in your organizations to maintain their passwords, the way to go is you have to create a password setting object. And you can look more into it, and as it's pretty clear here that these are all the settings which you can apply with this. And yeah, that's it. What's next? Troubleshooting group policy object. So this is something very important, and I already gave you some kind of a look into how the group policy get applied. It's a pull process, not a push process. So let's go ahead and see how we can troubleshoot it. Application of GPO is a pull process, which means that it is not the domain controller which pushes the GPO on client. Instead, the GPO is placed in a domain controller, and during the reboot, a computer policy, and during the logon, the user policy, it's the client which pulls the GPO settings from domain controller and applies it to itself. Hence, all GPO troubleshooting should start from a client. Following are some of the linear steps to resolve a group policy issue. So, because it is a pull process, it is always important that you start the troubleshooting from the client end. You should do a resultant set of group policy on client. You should do you should look into the event viewer of a client. So here is what we can do. If the issue is on one client or on all the clients, it's very important to know if the issue is on only one computer is unable to apply a specific group policy. Let's say that you have pushed a software installation. It got installed on all the computers, but on a certain computer it's not getting installed. Because this clarifies if the issue is at the server end or at the client end. Maybe you have configured the policy incorrectly. That's a server level issue. But if that's the case, then the issue will be on all the PCs. Now, in either case, log in into a client and start looking from there. First step, like I told you, reboot the computer. It will always force the reapplication of the GPO and clear any unknown cached issues. And this is very valid, especially if the issue is on only one PC. So rebooting the client, like I told you that when you are logging in, the user policy get applied, and when you are rebooting the computer policies get applied. So it is always good that if you are having a GPU issue, go ahead and reboot the PC, so that if there is any cache or any temporary issue with the PC which is causing this group policy not to apply, it will get cleared by itself. Check the event viewer for the error events. Force the errors by running the command gpupdate.force. So go to event viewer, look for the group policy related errors, and go to the command prompt, run the gpupdate.force on the client. This will immediately force the client to get the group policy from the servers, the domain controllers. And if you see that the group policy gets on the client, then if there is any error in the process, it will get immediately logged into the event viewer. Do an rsop.msc on the client and view the result. I showed you how I was doing rsop. Start run rsop.msc, which is the resultant set of group policy. I'll do it on a domain controller. You can do it anywhere. Group policies get applied on everybody. So okay, go here. First of all, I would go into the properties here. I will say what policies are getting applied. And usually, if there is any error in the group policy application, another tab appear here which says error. And then under that, you really get some very good information. So you can take an RSOP. If the setting, if the troubleshooting is about a particular setting not getting applied, so you can go into the details here and see what's happening with that setting. If there any error message, then also it shows up on a right column here. So RSOP is a good tool which you can use. Try to access the sysvol share from this path, because what happens is the group policy is a pull process. So on a whatever computer group policy is not getting applied, you should go to rootdomain.com, whatever the name of the domain. This is my domain name. And then go here and then go to sysvol and then go to this path. Then go to this path, because policies are stored here. And you have to make sure that your policies is available here. Remember, I was showing you the sysvol issue. If there is a problem with the sysvol replication and your group policy object did not appear here, then the client which is getting the group policy setting from this domain controller may not get the settings because the GPO is not available here. It will visible in the event viewer as well. Finally, if you find any error events, then go ahead and Google them, and you will find some troubleshooting help, how to troubleshoot those error messages. So CCLI 1704 is a successful message which comes on the machines when a group policy is updated successfully. So I'll do gp update / force, and I will open the event viewer on this computer. And I will go here and I will go to the application. See, this is the happy message, SEC CLI 1704. Group policy has applied successfully. This is what you like to see. So you do a GP update force and do this. But it's not always that you get this message. You get other error messages as well. So you can get error message like 1202 SEC CLI. There is no mapping between account names and security ID. This is a particular issue. There is a very specific article to resolve this issue. You can follow that article and fix that issue. You can get user env error messages 1053. Windows cannot determine the computer name or username, not enough storage available. Like there could be 1,000 errors which can come in group policy. The point is go into event viewer, look what is the error message, and then get into troubleshooting. And you already know GPMC, you already know how to edit the group policy. Now that troubleshooting will not look alien to you. You will be able to make sense out of it. Alright guys, so that's group policy. So here is what we have covered in this module. We have given you an introduction to group policy. We have shown you the GPMC console. We have broken down the GPO for you. We have showed you the computer configuration, user configuration, admin templates, etc. We created the first GPO for you. We did a group policy inheritance for you, LSTOU. I showed you what is blocked inheritance versus enforced, and this is a interview question. Who wins? Enforced will win. We showed you password policy, we showed you password setting objects, how there can be only one password policy in the domain which is linked at the domain level, and how if you want multiple password policies you need to apply password setting objects. And then we told you what is troubleshooting group policy objects. Alright, so this is what you have learned in this module. So here is your action items. Go to your default domain controller and domain GPO and look at their GUID and ADSI edit as well as GPMC. I showed it to you. So 31B and 6AC. 6AC is the default domain controller policy because default domain controller is physical and air conditioner is physical. 6AC is default domain controller, 31B is default domain policy. Create two GPOs for applying a wallpaper on a PC, apply the GPO on two different OUs. You can do that. Move around your PC in these two different OUs and do a GP update force, or if you have to reboot the PC or log off, log in, and see if you are able to get the wallpapers applied. Google for more GPO related issues and try to reproduce them. Group policies is an integral part of an Active Directory engineer. Once again, if you are a first level engineer or if you are studying all this to become a first level engineer, you would not be troubleshooting GPU from the server end. The maximum things which you will do is that you will go on a client PC, and the maximum troubleshooting which you will do is GPU update force and doing a reboot and looking into event viewer, because you will not have access to the domain controllers. But you can do some very good initial investigation, and you can escalate the issue if it is with server. But in most cases, if a group policy issue is on a local PC, then the problem will be with that PC, not anywhere else. So that's what group policies are. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next module. Thank you so much. Bye bye.